Oh, welcome to another edition of Howling with the Wolf. I am Cameron Wolf, the Wolf. Wanted to thank you guys for another episode, another week of joining me. NFL season's been rolling off really well, and we have a bunch to talk about. So I'm going to do as normal, give you a preview of what to expect for this episode. It's going to be a fun one. And as always, if you guys have any things to add, any comments, go ahead and follow me in the comment section. I'll go ahead and jump on them as normal. But I want to talk about the best thing I saw this week. I want to talk about Odell Beckham Jr. and his interview that he had with ESPN that was, causing a little stir. And I want to talk about the Dolphins, Patriots. I want to talk about what's going on across the NFL, and I have some questions that you guys already sent in that I want to address too as well. So we'll go ahead and jump in with the best thing that I saw all week, and I do a thing every week on ESPN.com called Unheralded Ballers, and it's simply to highlight guys that we typically don't talk about on SportsCenter, on my ESPN articles or anybody's ESPN articles, guys who had a big day statistically or via play. So I do this every week, and this week, one guy who made the episode from a position group that never makes the episode is kicker. Graham Gano for the Carolina Panthers made the team this week, and it was half because of his play. He made a 63-yard field goal to beat the New York Giants right as regulation ended, but the announcer who made the broadcast in Spanish really brought life to it. Ganola, Gano, Ganola, Gano, Ganola, Gano. He's a play with his last name, which means win. But if after this video, after you guys are done with this video, go look it up on Google, on Twitter, or whatever. And I think that you'll find some fun in that video. I think that was the best thing I saw this week. A lot of times you kind of see the energy displayed from other people in a different language than a lot of us speak. That really personified that moment for a kick that he probably wasn't supposed to make in a game that they probably could have lost. And we fully saw the energy. So I loved it. I thought that was the best thing I saw this week. And then quickly in that same game came one of the biggest topics, I guess, of the week. My colleague Josina Anderson did an interview with Odell Beckham Jr. Where they talked everything about Odell Beckham Jr. Lil Wayne was a part of it. Everybody was asking why Lil Wayne was a part of it. But I just want to focus on one part of this aspect, and I think it's interesting because if you follow the NBA, you saw what happened with Jimmy Butler over the last couple of days and his Timberwolves teammates. You saw Odell Beckham in this interview, just a short synopsis. He basically was asked a lot about what's going on in his role there, how he feels like Eli Manning, how he feels about him at this point in his career. And he was very non-committal on Eli, and he basically said he didn't know if Eli was an issue, and he did, sort of asked hypothetical questions like, why can't we throw the ball past 20 yards down the field? Why can't we get, me deep, easy balls like a lot of these receivers do in the league? Questions that he probably had been thinking privately. He discussed them on camera in that thing, and a lot of articles came out calling him a bad teammate, calling him creating drama. He already has that label that he's creating drama. It sort of got pushed into the next level on that. And I think my take, and it's not a hot take, it's truly what I feel, is that I don't see any problem with that. I didn't see any problem with what he said. I do have one caveat, but I don't have any true problem with what he said if he said it to his teammates and to Eli to his face. I'm the type of person where authenticity is king. That's why I love what Jimmy Butler did, even though it ruffled some feathers. That's why I'm fine with what Odell Beckham did, even though it ruffled some feathers. If you've said this to Eli, if you've said this to the team, if you feel like you've expressed this and nothing had been done, I don't see with any issue putting it out publicly. I'm just I'm a keep that same energy guy. So as long as you're keeping that same energy, go for it. And I'm fine with it. Let me know what you guys think on the whole ordeal in the comment section. But I saw a lot of criticism that he was being a bad teammate. I think being a bad teammate is sitting around and being okay with what you feel like is status quo. I feel like that if this was another player uh, who was saying it, not Odell, and another player who was on the receiving end and not Eli Manning, then it would have been perceived a little bit different. I think a lot of times we have the quote unquote label for Eli Manning because he has the Manning label, and nobody's really willing to criticize him. But to be honest, he hasn't been a top tier quarterback over the last 3 to 5 years. And I think Odell, privately and publicly, is starting to feel like, hey, I am in my prime, my window, and my quarterback isn't able to give me everything that I need as far as taking us to the next level. And obviously, he didn't say that, but I think that you're seeing some of that. And I don't think there's any issue for him to bring these issues up. So I think that sometimes, we sugarcoat things as a society, and I think that we're so worried about people's feelings and okay, you don't want to say the wrong thing and mess up team chemistry, but everybody's thinking the same thing. So somebody's got to say it. Somebody's got to be the man and say what they're feeling. That's why I love when Jalen Ramsey calls out whoever, because I'm sure he would say these same things to their face. Like I said, keep that same energy. And if you keep that same energy, I don't have any problem with what you say publicly. So that's sort of my take on the whole ordeal. I think that I hope and wish that we would see more athletes that are more vocal on however they feel about particular issues. And if we do, then I think it would make it a more fun league. I think that's one advantage that maybe you see oftentimes in the NBA that you don't see in the NFL is people more vocal with exactly how they feel on a particular subject. So I'm welcome to what OBJ did, and definitely want to see more of that. Lewis says sometimes the truth hurts, and maybe the Giants needed that to wake up. Yeah, you're looking at a 1-4 team. They were 1-3 when it came out. They lost obviously by that field goal, but you're not playing really well. Eli's your guy this year. You didn't draft a quarterback. You drafted Saquon Barkley at number 2. Phenomenal player. Mistake to draft him at number 2 over Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen or Lamar Jackson, whoever you liked out of the available quarterbacks. They passed on their chance to get a franchise quarterback, so they're sink or swim with Eli. And I think that maybe it wasn't. Maybe somebody should have been somebody different than Odell. But I feel like you got a star player, probably your best player on your team, and he wanted to be vocal, and I was completely fine with that going forward. So that is a funny thing to me, but I think I think Odell was speaking his mind, and I think that was sort of overblown in the reaction to it. So a few other things around the NFL. I know there's a Giants-Eagles game. For those who are watching live, that's going to come on. I'm eager to see how the Giants respond this week against Philly. The Eagles are 2-3. They're coming on in a period where they're the champs, and they could be put on the brink if they lose this game. So Carson Wentz has been hit quite a bit behind that banged up offensive line. So I think that it's a chance for him to sort of get right against a defensive front that hasn't put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Odell Beckham often typically has his best games when you're playing some of these top tier NFC East teams. So I think it'll be fun. I'm excited to see it happen. And this week we have quite a few of games that can really create some interest. Patrick Mahomes, as you guys saw last week, I love to call the guy is continuing the ball, and he has the Patriots this week. So we get to see if the Chiefs are ready to make their mark as far as the AFC team to beat going forward. And I see your question, Lewis, and I'll touch on that a little bit as far as is the AFC still up for grabs, and is it the Patriots to lose? The Chiefs are balling. The Chiefs are really, really balling, and I think that I love Andy Reid, Big Red, and his ability to call plays for Patrick Mahomes. And it's fun to watch that Chiefs offense, almost as fun to watch as Sean McVay's LA Rams. But those are the two best teams so far. I think the Patriots obviously have been the kings of this conference of the AFC East and the AFC as a whole over the last decade at least. So I think you've got to beat the champs to be the champs. So the Chiefs, we've had this run with them, different quarterback, different team, but we had this run with them before where they've been hot. You're not sure if they're for real or not. So I think this is a chance for them to really solidify their standing and say, oh, we are for real. We can compete against these high level teams going forward. So I'm eager to see that game. I think that if the Chiefs win that game, then you got to wake up and say that you know maybe they are the team to beat in the AFC. So quickly changing notes. I know for a lot of Dolphins fans that are here, whether you're a Dolphins fan or not, I had a lot of Dolphins fans who follow me on Twitter, follow me on social media throughout the day. I typically, I typically, yeah, I typically write for the Dolphins on a daily basis. So I had a bunch of people ask me or call. Am I losing you guys? Hold on one second. I think I'm still going. Yes. So I had a lot of people call or ask questions leading into the session about the Dolphins and wanting to know about different questions about them. So I have some that I want to go ahead and jump to, and let me know if you guys aren't seeing me because I am a little bit doing a different location here today, so I'm trying to make sure that it's popping up. Um, Give me 1 second. Okay, so I had one question about Eric Flowers, who was recently released um, by the Giants, and somebody wants to know that is he a good fit for the Dolphins? No, run away, run away. I have heard a lot of things. Very few are positive about Eric Flowers and his time in the Giants. I have a colleague up there that has had some run-ins with him and with you know him as a whole. I don't doubt that he's a talented player, but I think that he is too much of a hassle to be picked up on your team at this point. I don't think it's worth his while. I think that he's not a very good player as is, and even though he's a former first round pick, I don't think it's worth the hassle. So for me, that's a hard no. I'm a hard pass on Eric Flowers. So for those of you who are interested in him, um, there has to be a better route because from what I've, like I said, I'll just leave it to this. From what I've heard, he isn't the type of guy that's going to be gelling into the culture that Adam Gase is trying to preach out there, particularly in a unit that already has had some bad history with Richie Incognito and the Bullygate scandal. So I'd stay away from him at the time being. Another question I had coming in was let's see. Chris Bate is asking, what do you think the Dolphins have to do to keep Khalil Mack contained? Other than hoping and praying, I think that I talked to Adam Gase a lot about this week, and he discussed sort of using King and Drake as a receiving back even more than they have in usual. I think you'll see a lot of the short passing game for the Dolphins this week. I think you'll see him getting used as a chip blocker, and like he did last week on the third and 16, where he got an 18-yard gain. He laid out Carl Lawson of the Bengals on a smooth chip block. I think you'll see him used in that capacity quite a bit. I think you'll see the tight ends being used as well in that game. So I think going forward, you'll see a lot of the short passing game. I discussed this with Kenny Stills in the locker room today, and he sort of, he obviously wasn't ready to throw anybody under the bus, but it's clear that the offensive line's losses and their injuries have changed the way the Dolphins have attacked offensively. The first three games are red hot, 3-0. You're seeing all these trick plays. You're seeing all the plays down the field. You're like, okay, Adam Gase, Ryan Tannehill back. They're in session again, and then they've ran into a big dud over the last couple of weeks, and that has been not being able to protect Ryan Tannehill. We saw them lose two offensive linemen for the year for injury. Laramie Tunsil got a concussion last week, and Marvin Lewis said it was blood in the water when he left. So Adam Gase has to have a better plan for when his offensive line goes to chaos. But one thing we are learning, I guess I'm learning, you guys as Dolphins fans may have already knew this, is that Ryan Tannehill doesn't react well into chaos. He is the second worst quarterback in the NFL in passer rating so far when he's under pressure. And that's not what you want from your franchise quarterback. You want a quarterback who gets stronger when chaos happens, but we haven't seen that from Ryan Tannehill. So at this point, you may get a little better production, but at some point you are who you are. So I think you know that Ryan Tannehill is a quarterback who needs to be put in positions to succeed. And so far, the Dolphins haven't had him in a lot of positions to succeed over the last past weeks. So what I would say is you're going to see a lot of short throws to King and Drake. You're going to see a lot of max protection sets where you see tight ends coming in. You see running backs chip blocking. And if you get Laramie Tunsil back, which I think that you'll get him back this week based off what he's trending towards, then that should help you on the left side so that, on the right side where you've got Khalil Mack rushing against Juwan James, you can leave somebody out there at all times, whether it's a tight end, whether it's a running back chipping. You should see very little one-on-one situations with Juwan James and Khalil Mack. And if you do, hold your breath for Ryan Tannehill's safety, because that is not a player that you really want to let loose. And Tannehill mentioned it. That's a guy they're going to be watching at all times. So that's sort of my take on Khalil Mack. I wrote a story on ESPN.com about Khalil Mack and what the Dolphins are planning to do for that. You might want to check that out. That'll give you more of a full, nuanced view of what the Dolphins are planning to do. My hope for Ryan Tannehill's safety, because an upright quarterback means that the Dolphins at least have something worth interest on the national level, is that I think they've got to figure out a way to make sure that Khalil Mack isn't the guy that beat him. The Bears have other good guys on that front. Akeem Hicks is probably one of the most underrated players in the NFL, but Khalil Mack can't beat you on Sunday, and that would be my mindset if I'm the Miami Dolphins this week. Let's see. I had one more question. I see you, Kevin, Saints fan, in here. Hugo, appreciate the Wolves. Oh, thanks y'all viewing. For those who are just joining, I'm Cameron Wolfe, the Wolf. And this is just sort of the informal chat that we do weekly, and I appreciate you guys just joining me, adding your comments, your suggestions, your calls. We talked Odell Beckham earlier this episode. We talked about the best thing I saw this week. We talked a little bit around the NFL. So if you guys missed that, go ahead and rewind or watch it afterwards. Otherwise, we're going to answer a few more questions that I had saved up before. I'm going to give you a Dolphins prediction for this week against the Bears. And then we're going to go get the X Factors, and then I'm going to go find somewhere to watch this Giants-Eagles game. So I had one more question come in previously before this that was asking about trying to figure out what happened to Laramie Tunsil. And we were talking about Laramie Tunsil earlier, but Laramie Tunsil suffered a concussion in the third quarter. And I went back and filmed and saw the play. It looked like it was just a simple play where he was blocking. And I believe the defender that he was going against ended up, making a pass rush move and hitting him, I guess, in the wrong area. It didn't look crazy when it first happened. It would have been tough to watch if you were coming in, but you can kind of see him going off to the sideline, getting checked on. And they have what they call the UNC, the UNC, neurologic, we'll just go with UNC, who essentially makes those calls so that it's not a team decision. If somebody is showing any symptoms, any signs of concussion, they're called off to the field. They typically go into a tent, and what happens in this tent is they get evaluated. They do a simple test, and if they need to get further evaluation, they get sent into the locker room like he was. I actually talked to Laramie Tunsil briefly after the game. You're not supposed to talk to players, particularly on record, during the concussion protocol. He gave me a thumbs up, said that he was going to be all right, but obviously he had to go through the process. He jumped back into practice on Wednesday and Thursday. I briefly talked to him in the locker room before, and he thinks he's okay. So we'll see if he's good to go on Sunday, but I'm leaning towards him being able to go. So that's sort of my thought on that situation. I think that concussions, a lot of times, I think I saw a stat that more than 50 or 60% of the time you're out at least the next week. So it is a little, a bit of a surprise for him to be back so quickly. But concussions are not one size fit all. So I think that, a lot of times we think they're predictable. I've seen guys go on IR for concussions, and I've also seen guys come back in the same week. So I think we're looking at a situation where you're probably going to have a situation with him where he's going to be back really quickly, which is good for the Dolphins. And it'll be a situation where if they get their left tackle back, like I said, it gives them a little bit more help that they can give to Jawan James on the other side. So that's it for the questions that I had coming in. I'm going to go ahead and give my Dolphins prediction this week. I, unfortunately for Dolphins fans, I have been correct on the last two losses to the Patriots and the Bengals, and I am going to give them a third in a row. Bears 20-13. I think the Dolphins defense is their best way to stay into this game. They lead the NFL in interceptions. I think the Chicago Bears are either second or third. So this is going to be a game where if you win the turnover battle, you can have a nice advantage over a team. But I think the Dolphins in particular have had some struggles um, protecting the quarterback. They've had some struggles offensively, and that shows with my 13-point total. I think that it's going to be difficult for them to get a lot of success over what is a top 5 defense in the NFL this week. I think the key is going to be their receivers figuring out how to get off press coverage quickly. They've struggled with that in recent weeks. They're going to have to run a lot of slants, a lot of crossing routes, some routes that get open quickly so that Tannehill is not back there for longer than 3 seconds. That's why I think it'll be a big week for Kenyon Drake as a receiving back out of the backfield. Either way, I do not think it'll be enough. My X factors for this game, my number one X factor is Jawan James. He has the matchup of death this week against Khalil Mack. So as a Dolphins fan, you want to make sure that he, tries to hold his own, at least does an admirable job. He's played pretty solid this year per Adam Gase, and from film, he's had some ups and downs, but he hasn't been the biggest liability on that line. So you're going to need him to hold the fort. You're going to need him to be able to do something, to neutralize that great pass rusher. My second impact player, X factor, will be Jakeem Grant. Jakeem Grant has had 2 special teams touchdowns this season, one on kickoff return, one on punt return, including the one last week. He had 2 receiving touchdowns this year as well. He has been their most explosive playmaker since, for whatever reason, they don't seem to want to get the ball to Kenyon Drake consistently. So Jakeem Grant, this feels like a game you're going to need a Jakeem Grant or Albert Wilson touchdown to give you a chance in this. So Jakeem Grant is my X factor, whether it's on special teams or on offense. And my final X factor, as always, is on the other team. Akeem Hicks for the Bears. I mentioned him earlier. He's a guy who often gets forgot about, particularly because Khalil Mack is there. But he's a guy, if the Dolphins overcompensate for Mack, which I have a feeling they will, Akeem Hicks can really create some havoc inside, and that is an area where the Dolphins have struggled with Ted Larson, with Jesse Davis, and with their backup center, Travis Swanson, now starting. So those are things I look out for Dolphins fans here Sunday at 1 p.m. against the Chicago Bears. So that'll be a fun one. As always, subscribe to my page, please, on YouTube. Follow me here on Facebook, like and share with your friends. I want to continue to do these things, and I love doing it with you guys. So thank you guys for joining, and let's watch some football.